Welcome to Coworking Out Loud, Emilie. I am absolutely delighted to be connecting with you.
And thank you so much for having me. It's been a long time coming, so I'm glad that we finally have made this work.
Absolutely. I think the last time we were in the same place was at Juicy UK a few years ago, and we just got to nerd out on content marketing and different strategies. And right away, I knew that we speak the same language.
Yeah, definitely. It was all around, mainly around community, wasn't it? And different partnership and making sure that you're talking to your core customer. And I think you saw all the cool things we were doing on our social media, and I think I was very flattered.
Let's jump right into that, because that's one of the things I wanted to touch on, and I'll circle back to learn a little bit more about you. But I'm so impressed with Platf9rm social media. I'm so impressed with the brand. And I've used you as an example numerous times in workshops of how to loop in the external community, make them part of your brand, like the way you showcase, like how you know you're a Brightoner and different things like that. So will you just talk like some big picture about how you approach content for Platf9rm?
Yeah, of course. I think right at the beginning, because nobody knew, Platf9rm kind of arrived out of nowhere. Brighton and Hove is also, for those that don't know, it's on the south coast in the UK. It's only a city. It doesn't have a cathedral, but Brighton and Hove became a city. The Queen let us have it because of the population and the size. But we're sandwiched between the sea and the South Downs, and it's quite a unique place. There is already a really deep sense of community in Brighton, lots of artists, lots of creatives, but also lots of startups and loads of people that want that quick connection to London, but perhaps want a little bit of London in Brighton. And Platf9rm came out of nowhere. So Seb Royal the founder had moved down from London, and he created Platf9rm, which was there are 8 platforms at Brighton Station, and he wanted to create a new destination in Brighton. So thus Platf9rm, the name was born. And I think when I joined as one of the first employees, my whole kind of marketing and content strategy approach was about really celebrating what Brighton is all about. And Brightoners love a Brighton independent business, and that's what we were. And we wanted to attract other independent, like-minded individuals. And I think the best way to do that was to celebrate the members that we had and what made the city so great, and the traits and the values of the people that live here. So that was really what it was. It was about speaking to people that wanted to make Brighton a better place to live and work, people that valued their life, as a well-rounded kind of idea, as opposed to necessarily grinding, but people that were also ambitious. So I think it really at the beginning became what sort of directed it was talking to what people want and what people were feeling and what people wanted us. And I think celebrating other people's achievements is always a really lovely way. I mean, we're called Platf9rm. We are a platform for others, a platform for partnerships. And so all of that kind of directed the content strategy right from the beginning. It's obviously evolved since then.
Right. It's so brilliant, though, especially when you say popped out of nowhere. Co-working space operators have to do a lot of educating, especially if they're the first or the first few spaces in a town. And I love the idea that you immediately kind of embedded within Brighton, instead of trying to drag people to something they didn't know what it was. You immediately looped in the larger community, and you still do that really well with social and with your content, that it's really a celebration of Brighton, a celebration of the people. And then it feels really like this open door that people can then come check out the space because it's just an extension of who they are.
Exactly. We've always really tried to co-create with the members and with the team and with other people that I think other organizations, whether that's a charity or a cultural organization or businesses or whatever it might be, but that share sort of similar values, and that kind of helps to strengthen your brand because you're partnering and celebrating with them. We always used to joke as well that we wanted Platf9rm to feel I wanted it to feel like the Cheers bar, you know, like you walk in and everybody knows your name. Like that's the kind of feeling. We have a big pub culture here as well. I think we have more pubs per square mile than anywhere in the UK. I might be wrong, but there are so many pubs in Brighton. And in my 20s, I used to frequent them a lot. And when you do that, you end up knowing all the bar staff. You know, people are like, hey, Emilie. And when I worked in pubs when I was 18, I would see people park in the car park and be pulling the pint of Guinness that I knew that they wanted, so that when they arrived at the bar, it's already there for them. And I think that that's something that in terms of brand, it's not just really in the strategy, like the content strategy in your social media. Of course, they're all important in your logo and in your copy and your messaging, but it really is at every touch point. So it's from that first moment that they walk through the door, welcome them, make them feel comfortable, ask them loads of questions, you know, listen to what they're looking for from that co-working space, and then kind of pinpoint or direct them or try to help them to get the best out of it, but always making them feel like they're part of it and that they belong.
Yeah, one of the things I love about Platf9rm, just from watching from over here, is it's such a strong brand, but when I see photos inside the space, it feels really warm and cozy, like everybody's connecting and knows each other. I think that's an interesting and sometimes challenging balance to strike, because we're seeing more and more like super fabulous spaces, and then we're seeing a lot of community focused spaces, and it's like striking that balance of the two, where it has all the professional amenities and all the things that we members need, but it also feels warm and cozy. That's an interesting challenge.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is to credit Rich Brett and Nathan Zaver at We Like Today, who are the architects that Seb engaged with to design Platf9rm. Rich has a real, Seb chose a local interior architecture company to do that. And I think that was really part of he wanted it to feel like Brighton. It's imaginative, it's playful. Our kind of newest space, Hove, it feels like you're like an adult at like a, I don't know, it's like the walls are like scratch and sniff, like everything's tactile. You want to touch everything, scratch it, smell it, lick it. Like he really worked with the materials of the space. All the colors are so considered. And also it's playful. So no matter, also wherever you are in the space, you can almost see, or you can see something else going on. So you have this kind of, you can tuck yourself away and get your head down, but you also have a sense of FOMO, and you're always seeing something that's happening or people connecting. And I think that really adds to that kind of the elusive vibe that is quite hard to kind of do if you just fill a room with desks and chairs and a coffee machine and call it co-working. Like, I think you have to be quite clever and creative to achieve what Platf9rm has, and We Like Today did a great job with that.
Agreed, 100%. And I'm seeing more and more people are reaching out to me where they've opened a space, whether as a landlord, business owner, franchisee, whatever. They get all the things in place, open the doors, and they're like, now what? Right? Like, what do we do now? How, like you just said, that elusive vibe that you know it when you feel it, and you also know when it's lacking. And when it's lacking, like I've been a co-working member for a lot of years, and I've worked out of a lot of spaces, and some of them have it and some of them don't. And it's not just a flip a switch kind of thing, like here's the checklist of things to do. It's like an all day, every day kind of thing.
Yeah, I completely agree. There are so many developers that wish, like, if you could bottle vibe and sell it, you'd make so much money, because there's so many big developers that, you know, have to have an element of co-working, or they think that's going to tick a few boxes for what they need in a development, but it just ends up being a bit like flat. And I think, but it's a combination of things. It's, you know, and it's the small subtleties as well. It's, I know Seb made some decisions right at the beginning that he didn't want to have a bean to cut machine. He really wanted to have a coffee grinder in the space to get that kind of coffee culture and the smell of coffee. So it's not just about coffee, but it's about the small subtleties of decisions that you make. It's about all of the senses. Like, music was so important to us at the beginning. Me and Seb would talk about how we would curate the kind of experience when it came down to the playlists, and it's multifaceted to get it right. And even you're right, even if you have the checklist, I think it's all down to so many different things, and also the people that make it what it is.
Yep. The music, like what it is, where it is, how loud it is a huge thing. And the coffee machine, I was thinking about this the other day. We have a really nice coffee machine here, and it grinds it like for each cup. There are days where I've been like, should I go in or should I work from home today? And I've thought, I'll go in because I can get a good coffee. Like, I don't think that operators understand that coffee's not just something you check off. It's like those of us who want good coffee and good tea, it's a really big deal. It is sometimes the thing that gets us to come into the space.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we're also missing out on sort of the event side of things, or the creating of the community and creating those moments of serendipity, which I think that was a big thing at the beginning, and what Rich wanted to do with the physical space. It's creating these pockets where people, will collide, they will bump into each other, they will have these moments where they can connect and talk. But events do that really, really well as well. If you can put on kind of thought-provoking, thought leadership, or events where people can be vulnerable and connect on a deeper level, or they can be inspired, or they can learn from a workshop, or they can feel part of a cause. Like there are so many different types. So I think part of why we have a lot of great content and good social media is because we put on a lot of great cultural programming type events as well.
I have noticed that, and it you can tell it's baked into Platf9rm because you have that event space, the little amphitheater that I see all the time. I'm glad that you brought that up, because I wanted to touch on how you use events to bring in the larger community, but also what you just said, Platf9rm really pushes conversations forward. Like, you have conversations that may be tricky. You have conversations where people can be vulnerable. You open conversations that are kind of touchy. And I love that you're doing that. It's really setting a tone, not just in Brighton, not just in Platf9rm, but for co-working. Like, let's use co-working as a way to move things forward. And I just adore that. Do you want to talk a little bit about, just how you approach programming, and also what that looks like now? I know during COVID, everything got flipped upside down. So what's that looking like these days?
Yeah, of course. I think you have to really think about who's in your space first and foremost, and what those people come to your space for. If you're predominantly a co-working space that just has monthly to monthly freelancers, for example, then your cultural program might look very different to if you have a bit more of a mixture. So if you have startups or scale-ups, or much larger companies that might have a hub and use you as a place to have their offshoot. So I think thinking around who will be coming to the events, who is it for? What do you want them to feel when they're there? What sort of speakers, what topics? We have different pillars for our event strategy around connection, or physical is really important. We don't just like doing events in our space. We also like going on wild walks and swims, or we have a partnership with Kim Slade from Unlost Co, who takes people on these mini adventures. So last Christmas, they all went around a campfire and toasted marshmallows, or they'll go to a secret beach that not many people in Brighton have been to before, and they'll have a swim, and there'll be hot drinks that he will make over a fire, and they're kind of these special moments. So, but then we'll also do badminton or sports days where you can kind of brings people together. Sometimes they have an element of playfulness and fun to them as well that lets you reconnect with that childhood spirit, and it makes people feel a little bit more that they can be who they want to be. But then again, as you're right, we do try to challenge ourselves with the types of events, and I know that Seb is quite keen to think about what's going on in the world right now. It's hard to ignore what is happening in the world, and how can we create those types of events where you're doing it with sensitivity, that people are challenged perhaps in the way of thinking. It's quite easy to be in an echo chamber with social media and where you live. So sometimes trying to have things from different points of view, but able to facilitate it in a way where people don't feel attacked and people feel like they're learning. It's quite a skill to do that, I think. But we also have our socials, you can do all of those types of things, but we'll always have an activity around it, because just putting beers out, there are people that don't drink alcohol. You don't want to exclude anybody. So having to think around that diversity of the types of people and to allocate it for them. We recently, every year we do Kick-Ass Women Festival, which we sell out. It's 120 people and it's a full day kind of celebration of all that it means to be a woman or non-binary person. We'll have different people talking about their fields of work, but also what it means to how we can do progression. It is not an anti-man day. Men are invited to come along. We've had dads bring their daughters that are 14 and, accompanied them. And everyone, I mean, the feeling on the day is unimaginable. I feel so proud to have sort of created something like that. And most recently, I've been on maternity for 7 months, and most recently, Holly and Tori, the marketing manager and events manager, created Work Reinvented, which was a kind of update on our Welcome to Work event, which we've done, which is all around the future of work and thinking around our purpose, our people, our planet, what that means. We were talking around physical space. Obviously, COVID has thrown up so many different ideals around how and where you want to work. I think it's really interesting, the power. It's not this great resignation. Maybe it's a great reevaluation. People are having all sorts of reevaluations in their lives post-COVID, that where and how you work is so important. We spend so much of our time at work, so you better make it work for you, not just sort of living paycheck to paycheck or living for the weekend. Think about how you can align your work to the greater good, and then we're kind of facilitating those conversations around that. So yeah. Everything you just said is so brilliant. I don't know what to circle back on, because it's all just feels like gold. I love that, the reevaluation. It's one of the things I'm very grateful for out of a really challenging time, that we're all just assessing and kind of recalibrating who we are and how we want to spend this short time we have here. Emilie, let's chat a little bit. So you mentioned working in a pub when you were younger. What was your entrance into marketing and then into co-working? What's a little bit of your story? I think it probably starts at middle school, when I don't know how it happened, but essentially there was this internet after school club that 10 of my year group of about 100 children got to go to this after school internet club. And that was back with dial-up. And I think I was like 11 years old. I remember and my dad was very encouraging of this thing called the internet. And I remember we had a desktop computer in our small little box room upstairs. And I made my first website, which was a clip-up picture of a lion. I think it was 24 pixels, Comic Sans, Emily's webpage in this awful purple. And I uploaded it to the internet. I wouldn't be surprised if it took, a couple of hours to upload this very simple page. But I was just obsessed with the internet. I would be viewing sources, copying, pasting, using all of those old school X-Page, new, live, all of those. And I was always on message boards and community boards for pop punk bands in New Jersey, mainly Drive-Through Records bands. I was obsessed with them.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I was like a moderator on the Spartan Lines message board, and I was always on AOL talking to Americans, and got to go over to festivals in New Jersey when I was 17 and 18, like Skate and Surf Festival.
Wow.
But all of that was possible through the internet and community, on message boards, and feeling like they were all my really good friends. So staying up till 4 a.m. so that I could talk to Americans online. But then I started making websites for bands and artists, friends and creatives when I was at school. After school, in summer holidays, making money at 15, making websites. And I think that entrepreneurial thing of, I can do this. School's boring. I'm bored at school. I can be doing more of this stuff where I can be helping my friends and taking photos at gigs and doing all of that kind of stuff. So after university, I created Brighton Creatives, which was a blog and a platform to help the creatives at Brighton and Hove. And we would do websites for them, branding projects, but we would also do much larger projects because creatives don't usually have a lot of money. So you have to kind of do some other things to kind of pay the bills. And I did that for 6-7 years before I started working at Platf9rm. So a lot of the kind of blogging, content creation, promotion came from the way that I had activated Brighton Creatives and just did a very similar thing, but for startups, freelancers, businesses, and so that's kind of how it led me to where I am now.
We have a shared intersection that I didn't even know about before this conversation. I don't know if you know, I spent many, many years working in record stores. So I filed many CDs, cassettes. I feel like probably vinyl too of drive-through records. And that's a fun intersection. Emilie, I have to ask you about a marketing campaign you did at the train station a little while ago. Tell me about that, because it was absolutely genius as people are questioning commuting and the whole remote thing's exploding. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I'm going to give credit where credit is due. So that was Holly Sangby, our marketing manager, who came up with that brilliant campaign. I'd just come back from maternity and she was like, right, we've got the stickers, Emilie, can you make the coffee kind of sleeve? We've got the t-shirts, and went up to the station. But the whole idea, when Platf9rm first started, and we have the Platf9rm name, so the 9th platform at Brighton Station, there were a lot of train strikes that were happening as well. So people weren't able to get to work. And this is pre-COVID, pre-people really staying in the city or knowing what co-working was. So we would have campaigns around don't get the train to London, or I shouldn't say this, but they're called Southern Rail. We would call them Southern Fail, which was probably a bit cheeky to get people to come into co-working. But the way that Holly did this most brilliant, kind, more new campaign where we actually got to talk to the commuters. We connected with Small Batch Coffee, who are they're a coffee chain in Brighton and Hove. They have some co-working cafes, but they try to kind of leave laptops out of it. So it didn't necessarily feel like a conflict of interest. What we were doing, it was on National Co-working Day. And I think you're right. A lot of people still don't necessarily know what co-working is. I think as a marketer, you will never be able to see your brand from, I think you just see it. You're so in it, aren't you? That you almost can't believe that people don't know what co-working is, or that's an option. Right. But National Co-working Day, there's a load of people going in and out of the train station. Small Batch have a coffee cart right outside of Brighton Station. So, we put the sleeves on the coffee and just offered people a sleeve where they could redeem it for a free coffee at any Small Batch in the city. And on there was a QR code where they could come in and get a free day pass from Platf9rm. But, it's that brand awareness piece. We got to talk face to face, so it's almost like that old school flyering. We did have to get a flyering license from Brighton and Hove Council to do it. You can't just do stuff like that. But to be able to talk to people direct around why they're commuting, where they work, was interesting. And actually I not bumped into, but I was chatting to this guy and I said, I'm from Platf9rm. And he went, I know Platf9rm. I know friends that have membership there. I work for a charity around the corner. And I went, oh, great. What do you think about it? He's like, well, you're not just co-working, are you? You're a community. And I was like, yes, thank you. That was music to my ears, because I'd had this period of time away from Platf9rm, and it was just this really great sense of, people really get what we do, and it's not just desks and Wi-Fi. We are a community. So credit to Holly for working up that partnership, because it was a really fun morning. Obviously, we got some people through the doors from it too.
That is music to the ears. And I like the old school, we do so much in digital marketing. So much of it is the algorithm and all the things. a lot of people have success with like a sandwich board or like a campaign like that where you actually get to talk with people. I love it. And how would you advise people who are trying to create that vibe, that community, trying to create a sense so that when someone references their space, they say, oh yeah, you're a community also. Like, how would you advise operators that are working to do that?
I think the first thing that I would say is that I don't think it necessarily comes overnight. You can't just call yourself a community and hope that it's going to happen. I do think it takes a few of the things that we've mentioned, the events, rather than the team that work for you, rather than them just filling up the coffee machine, like have them kind of integrate in with the members, be talking to the members on a deeper level to find out what it is that they're there for and help them to get more of that. So whether that is just a quiet place to work, so maybe don't bother them. Maybe they just want to come down and put their head. So to know what they want. Somebody might be new to a town, so maybe they want to know about all of the clubs and things that they can connect with in the city to feel less lonely. Introduce them to people. That a community, you can't just push down community. You can't shove it down people's throats. Right. What you need to do is you need to interweave people, create those connections, those introductions. You need to really help people to get what they're coming for. But I think also encouraging people to get involved, because I think with community, you can't just take from a community. I think you only really get out of it what you put into it. So I think ways in which members can feel like they're part of the space, that they have a say. We're so lucky as marketers in co-working, or even if you're not a marketer and you're a sole owner of one, is that your customers are right there in front of you. You're not selling a can of Coke to like the masses. You are literally, they are there. Like, what better market research, or what more could you want? If you think around if you're member centric, so your members are at the center of it all, make them happy. They will tell their friends, they will tell other people. It's just a ricochet wave of that. So just ask them what they want and just give it to them. Like, it's not, they're right there. We're so lucky.
Absolutely brilliant. I always think about that. Like, we're not selling dishwasher widgets or something. Your people are right there. You can just ask them. If you're not already talking with them, you're missing a huge opportunity. Emilie, before we jump off, is there anything you want to add? Anything that we've stepped over?
Let me just think. I think maybe about just maybe the differentiators of co-working spaces. Now that, Platform9 opened 6 years ago, there was obviously other co-working spaces, but certainly in Brighton, the market is, we might have been the first of our kind. There were definitely co-working spaces in Brighton beforehand that were kind of member owned or slightly different kind of setups. But, in those 6 years, we've had a lot of new co-working entrants, and I don't think that's going to end. There's possibly going to be a Soho Works opening in 2023. And I think that really knowing who your audience is, what you stand for, what your purpose is. So, if you can have a mission or a greater purpose and you have values and take time to really think about what they are, then you can use that as your kind of, your North Star or your guiding light in all of your marketing to make sure that you're talking to the types of people that you want in your space. I think, some co-working spaces will really focus on one particular sector. They might just be for freelancers. They might not have many co-working. Actually, they might be more flex and have more offices than they do co-working, depending on how they set it up. So I think thinking about who you want there, why you're doing it, writing it down and kind of living by those values and referring back to that mission and trying to communicate that as much as possible will attract the people that you want in the space. And it will make it a lot more of an enjoyable experience if you're getting, if you're doing that.
Absolutely. It's so the differentiation piece is so important, especially now, especially with this like insane growth trajectory. For brands, but also for members. Like, if it's not clear who the space is for and I wander in there as a member, that kind of disjointed feeling or unclear vision, values, vibe, you can feel it. And it doesn't feel like a good fit because it doesn't feel like it's, for me, like it's a space of belonging. That was so beautifully put. Emilie, what is the best way for people to connect with you, learn more about Platform9?
I would say definitely check out my LinkedIn. I post around future of work, being a working mother, and all sorts of things on there. So if you just go to my LinkedIn profile, I'm Emilie Lashmar on there.